of these days, I'm gonna have a real studio. I'd love to have you over. If I got big enough, I would pay for my guests, fly them over. But are you
Yeah,
ever
that's
gonna
right.
visit the States?
Yeah. I'll visit again. I'm gonna come back every Friday. Every Friday,
That'd be
Jesus
cool.
Christ.
That'd be a long flight,
Every
though.
February, March, and April for about 10 weeks to tour.
Oh, wow.
But not this year because I said to my missus I was gonna go back to the States this year and tour, and she went, "No, you're not." And I was like, "Why?" And she goes, "Because you got to finish our goddamn house." And I was like, "Oh yeah, that's fair enough."
So yeah,
So
explain this. This is like so. Your life is so interesting. You're a chiropractor who decided to do stand up. You've lived in Croatia, Germany, and England, and now Australia. But also, like
correct.
you're born from obviously born in America. So
In
explain this
Iowa.
journey.
Yeah.
It's fascinating.
Okay. So the real story is let's think. So we graduate from chiropractic college from the university there in Davenport, Iowa, and you realize real quick that the healthcare system over there, as you know, is it's not right for the whether you're a dentist or a chiropractor or the patient. Like the whole system is based on insurance. Maybe you don't know this. The way it works is
Oh yeah, it's
with
fucked. I've got.
yeah,
I remember when I first got a job, and I had my appendix out, and I was like, oh well, I mean, I was in the hospital for like 6 days, 5 days, which is a lot for appendix. But I remember I was getting bills like a year later. They're still sending me fucking bills.
yeah,
It's like, what is? I thought I had insurance. Insurance is
yeah,
basically a coupon. It's not. It
yeah,
doesn't cover everything. It's a fucking
yeah.
ripoff. So yeah,
And then it
sorry.
and then somehow it's like $53,000 because it's just it's a
Yeah.
scam. And then but they've got what. Well, do you want to die or do you want to pay $53,000? You're like, all right, I'll pay $53,000. Um, so uh, the other thing is with like HMOs. I didn't work in the States very long, but I think this is how it works. Um, they go to the doctors. They say normally your charge is $200 for whatever you're doing. How much will you do it for? They say I'll do it for $53. When it comes to people come in for their prescriptions or whatever, $53. And then the company says, all right, we'll send you patients. So the way it works essentially is your care is going to the lowest bidder. So we kind of went, hey, we're not interested in that. So let's travel a bit and see what's out there in the world. So we
So
lived
it's
in
interesting.
Croatia.
It actually fucks over the doctors and the practitioners too. See, I thought it just fucked over the patients.
No. Everybody gets screwed over with it.
Okay.
And then, like, let's say that
The
normally I don't
insurance
even
companies
know.
don't though. They make a lot of
No,
money.
no, they do all right. Yeah. And the pharmaceutical companies do just fine as well.
Yeah. And the
So
government, the politicians,
yeah,
they
yeah,
got three
they're
homes.
loving it. They're loving it.
Yeah.
There was something that you had said about that. I don't know. But for the doctors and the when it comes to insurance and billing the insurance,
Yeah.
you have to hire somebody who costs you twice as much. And then what happens with the insurance companies is they send the doctor's staff will send the insurance company the bill, and then the insurance companies have a tradition, a rule, whatever. 70% of claims they will reject because they know that then you got to resend it, and then they reject it again, and then you got to resend it. And if they can reject it 2 to 3 times, the likelihood of you sending it again becomes minimal. Because what happens is if you highlighted with a pink highlighter instead of or an orange one on a certain box instead of yellow, rejection.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's so weird, dude. It's so weird. So we were like, we don't want to play this game. So we went. We lived in Croatia. We thought we were going to stay longer. I just have friends who were from there originally, so we were there. We were learning to speak the language. This is where my surname for comedy comes from. So Kuratz doesn't. It's not a random name. It's not my real name. My real name is unpronounceable because it's a long Italian name. It looks like linguine. And so Kuratz means dick in Croatian. So you would say,
So your
like when you're
comedy
saying,
name is Jimmy Dick.
Yeah. So when you're saying to your friends in Croatian, "Hey, how you going?" You say "Koje Kuratz," which means "which is your dick?" Just means what the fuck is wrong with you? How you going?
Okay.
Right. So um and pushy Kuratz. Pushy means to smoke. Smoke my dick.
Okay. All right. I'm learning.
So
I can't wait to go to
yeah,
Croatia and then swear.
yeah. I tell you what, they are a wild bunch. I played rugby there, and
Jesus,
they
you've done so many crazy things.
well, yeah. I guess I'm just not really afraid. Uh, are you familiar with Ralph Waldo Emerson?
I've heard you talking about him, and yeah, isn't he an author, poet?
Yeah, he wrote a book back in 1841 called Self Reliance. And basically, one of the main themes of it is your characteristics go with you wherever you go. So somebody can take away all your money, but if you know how to make money, if you know how to run a certain kind of business, you start up like here in Tasmania where we live now. We're just starting a practice up again, and you go, "Oh my God, you're starting from scratch." Kind of. You're starting with no clients, but you have 25 years of experience on how to take care of patients, how to diagnose, how to treat stuff, how to run a business. So it's really not a worry because you know within a very short time compared to when you first started 25 years ago, it will take you 1/10 of the time to build that business or to build that rapport in town or whatever it is. So you take your characteristics with you. So I really don't have a fear that something isn't going to go well because I know that the 3 times I've done something before, it's gone well. So, and when it comes to construction, so I'm building my own house, right? And people go, "Oh, do you know a lot about a construction?" I know fuck all about construction. Here's what I know. I'm not an idiot. That's what I know. I'm not stupid. So when it comes to getting a wall to hang vertical, you want your walls to be vertical. I know how to make a plumb line. It's not complicated stuff. It's just a matter of are you willing to do it? And then if you do screw it up, you just got to tear it down and start again. It's not like,
But what if you're
it's
not
just,
good at, what if you haven't found that thing that you're good at? What if you're 45 years old and you're still looking to find that thing that you just kick ass at, that you're like you sound like one of those people that wins a lot. Like you're good at rugby, you're good at building a business, you're good at building your house, you're good at comedy.
I
What
wouldn't
about,
say I was good at rugby.
okay. Well, you could do it. You could play it. I mean,
Yeah.
what about
Yeah.
people who cannot, who they fail at everything? Uh,
Okay.
How do they
So
find the thing that they're good at?
there was a book. It's called 30 Million Words. And it's about the difference between, and they do this in some schools now. They really use this program. 30 Million Words, the summary of this book is that with all the research that they did, they found that the difference between people who are successful and unsuccessful, and successful, just I would define that as there is a task to accomplish. Did I accomplish it? Right? That is success. Inability to complete tasks and finish them is unsuccessful. So the difference between those people is this set of 12 skills. And those skills include things like math and reading, but they also include stuff like leadership, setting tasks for yourself, debating skills. There's 12 of them. In order to build those, you need somebody to do that for you. And where that generally happens in a family where there's two parents, maybe one works and one doesn't, one of the parents reads to you every night from the age of 0 to 6 years old. You get 45 million words. If mom is single, working 3 jobs, has 4 kids, who's reading to the kids? Who's talking to them? They're getting 15 million words. So it's a 30 million word gap. Now,
Ah.
ideally, you get those words from 0 to 6, and it helps you build those skills, and then you just go on to success. If you don't get that, another place you can build it very easily is in high school team sport. You'll build those same skills. Now, if you still didn't get those, well, then you got to find a way to do it for yourself, which is a lot of reading. But who has time to read? People come home after work, they just watch television, they don't have time for any of that crap, and they're just absorbed in the next whatever mini series, the next, Netflix series, so they don't build it. So if you haven't built it and you're not consciously building it, then you're destined to be screwed. That's terrible.
So you
But
just, so as an adult, if you're 45 like me, or 30 or 50 or 70 or whatever, like you could still do it. You have to go back,
yeah,
maybe read this
but you
book
will have
and
to consciously make the decision to attack it.
yeah. Well, that's
That's
what I'm
I
trying
mean,
to
I
do.
don't
So I'm
know.
trying to like, but I'm setting my goals high. I'm like, I want 100,000 YouTube subscribers. And
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't know if I can do this, man. This is like fucking,
So
what was I thinking?
I do not believe in goal setting. Well, I do believe in it. I believe people do it. I believe it is detrimental to success because if you set goals, what happens is then you rate your success on whether or not you complete that task. If you only get to 85,000 followers, then you're like, I'm a failure because you had this specific goal in mind. And it goes back to the whole idea that no, it's the journey, right? So I do what I call projects, 6 month projects, and I don't give a shit about the outcome. All I know is for 6 months, I'm going to do this every goddamn day, and we'll see what the outcome is. So when it comes to posting my videos online, I had no goal for how many subscribers I was going to end up with between Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube. I had heard the number that you need to get to over a whole number of years is if you can get to yourself to about 250 to 300,000 followers, then you're a lot more likely you'll be selling out your shows for stand-up comedy. I said, look, I'm at this point 48 years old. I just turned 49 yesterday. 48 years old. I go, I don't know shit about social media. I go, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to post a video every other day on all four of them and see what happens. I did it for exactly 6 months. That's it.
I-
That is the success, is knowing that I set a task and I completed it. So now I don't give a frog's fucking fat ass what the number is. I'm over here doing this. Good job. You committed for 6 months, 180 days. I
No,
mean,
I
the
did a
nice
similar
outcome.
thing. I think I did, I think it was a little less than 90. I think it was like 70 days. And I posted a video every day. It was either a podcast or a clip from my podcast, or I went live and just talked about
Yep.
something. But I did it for
Brilliant.
90 days and it did give me a
Yeah.
big boost. But yeah,
Yeah.
I didn't get where I
But
wanted to go. But it,
more importantly, it it is that first stepping stone. Shit, I know I can
yeah,
do something for 90 days,
yeah, that's
right?
true.
So let's say there's something I want to do. Okay, I'm going to try pushing myself for 180 days. Or there's this thing that I don't know anything about that I'm scared to death to do, but I know that I'm capable of doing something for 90 days, whether I know something about it or not. And then you do that, and it builds those 12 skills just a little bit. So now you can take on the next bigger task and the next bigger task and the next bigger task because you've been building those skills by attacking these challenges. So one of the this is kind of related. There's a guy, he's still alive, named Les Brown. And Les Brown
Yeah.
is a motivational speaker, black
Mhm.
guy. Um, and one of the things that he said, it was something to the effect of, if I'm unwilling to take on risks, then I can't have challenges to face. And if I can't have challenges, then I can't grow. And if I can't grow, I can't become my best. And if I can't become my best, I can't be truly happy. And if I can't be truly happy, what's the point? So it all starts with going, all right, there's this thing I don't know how to do. I'm going to take the challenge on. I'm going to risk failing to take this challenge on so I can grow. The entire point of everything we're doing, whether it be comedy, whether it be your professional career, as chiropractor, whether it be building your house, whatever the hell it is, whether it be rugby, okay, the whole point is growth. My daughter is playing Australian rules football, just like she's in high school, right? And she's like, man, I'm terrible at this, but she knows because I tell her that it doesn't fucking matter. The only thing that matters is growth, 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 growth. Like if you're the best on the field, you're the best on the oval, but your growth is going nowhere. You're failing every day, right? You don't want to be the best. You want to be your best. You want to become undeniable. You want to just keep improving the skills that you suck at. You start going, oh yeah, the ones I suck at are the ones I should be working on. That's not answering your question that you asked, but
No, yeah, it's just like because I did that thing where I posted every day for like I don't know whatever it was, like 2 months, but then I feel like then watch other things and they say like, well, no, like if you look at Mr. Beast, he'll say like it's better to do like one video a week that's really good than like seven
Yeah.
videos that are kind of like okay,
Yeah,
one
look,
every day. Like, so he's all about more over like, I guess, like quality over quantity. But I guess sometimes you kind of don't know what direction to go in. And so that's why you do the quantity. So you can just get a bunch of stuff kind of like, and look at the data and go, okay, I posted 70 videos. Here's the ones that really did well. Here's the ones that didn't do well. I should do more of these and kind of like hone those
yeah,
videos.
I think that's logical. I mean, the problem is when it comes to marketing, nobody knows what they're doing until you've done it for like 10 years. And then, like, Mr. Beast can go, oh, yeah, here's what works because he knows what works. But at the same time, when you've got a different kind of a product, that might only partially apply. So you only know once you know. And then again, like I was saying, you could somebody then, okay, you build yourself to the point where you've got 3 million followers. And for whatever reason, you abandon that channel and you start a new channel. That new channel will grow in a tenth the time because you know all the things that got you there. You know what doesn't work. So you're skipping all that bullshit,
Mm.
right? So it's just a, but the problem that we run into, I mean, even I do, is you start going, well, compared to this person, and I see what they're doing, and that I just, it's not helpful,
Yeah.
you
Well, you're
know.
doing really well though, because I mean, you said you started comedy how long ago? I mean, you've got like almost
Uh,
30,000 followers on Instagram. I forget what your TikTok is, but I think it's obviously
so
more.
so I started comedy 9 years ago.
Oh, has it been that long?
Yeah, but I
Hmm.
only started posting stuff 7 months ago.
Oh, okay.
So I
Wow.
went from, I had a total of less than 1,000 followers between Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook,
Damn.
and now I've got 67,000 or something.
See, so that's amazing. Like I've been doing the online stuff for years and years. And like, I just can't, I mean, it took me a while. Like the first 1,000 on YouTube was that took a couple of years. And then the
Mhm.
next 1,000, it just took a year. And then from 2,000 to 4,000 was like a year. So I'm like, I'm hoping that
Okay.
it just starts, progressively getting more
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah, probably. I have no idea. The thing that I observed with most comedians is they post shit online, right? But they have 3,000 posts on their Instagram, and it's just all shit, and it's all shit, and it's all shit. And then if I'm a viewer, I gotta scroll through all this shit to find one gem. And so what I always thought was only post stuff that works in front of a live audience. What I
Hmm.
see a lot of people doing is they're like posting stuff that
Um,
they're asking the online audience, is this stuff funny? And the problem there is the online audience knows fuck all about comedy. They are the worst metric by with which to measure your comedy because there's so many of them that will not, because comedy is subjective, right? You have people who like and dislike every type of thing. So now only 5% of people online are going to like your stuff. And if everybody does like your stuff, it's probably so generic and non offensive that it's garbage. Whereas if you've tested it in front of the live audience, people who have paid money and they are loving what you're doing, then I take that and I post it online. And then some of those get good traction and some of them don't. Um, the ones that don't, I end up taking down only because the purpose of social media is to have this fake representation of how good you are. So I've posted 100, I think I did 130 videos on Instagram, for instance. Um, the ones that have over 400,000, there's only like 11. So I
interesting.
only have 11 on Instagram. And like people are like, how do you have 27,000 followers on only 11 posts? And all 11 posts are like, 500,000 to 5.5 million views. How did you do that? And because another guy told me this, that he's like 30, 40, 50 of them up there. He goes, oh, I've had 1,200 videos I've put up. I just take down the ones that are shit. So that when people are looking online, they're like, hey, I'm going to buy a ticket to go see this guy. Let's see if he's funny. and they scroll through, and I've only got these 30 awesome videos. They're like, oh, I'm buying a ticket.
That's a good, wow, that's an interesting strategy. I never thought of that. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
different for, I don't know how, if that would work with podcasts too, but definitely for stand up, I think
no
you're right.
idea.
That makes sense because you're right. I always do that when I go on a stand up's Instagram. I'm always looking, I'm like, okay, this has 6 million views. This one has like 10,000. I'm like, oh, skip that one, skip, but
Yeah,
sometimes I will say, sometimes the ones that have like 10,000, I find funnier than the ones
yeah.
that are more
Look,
popular. So that's the other thing is like, you're right. It's all
again,
subjective.
it is subjective, yes, but I kind of, and I see that there is value in that as well. But you're just trying to hit the large when you're unknown. You're just trying to
Yeah.
hit the largest percentage of
Yeah.
people, really.
That's
You
true.
know,
That's a very good point. And that,
so
yeah, it makes
I
sense.
don't.
It's a good way to
I
build
don't
it.
know if you saw. I did a little. I put a little 17-minute special on YouTube recently. Right?
Yeah. I
So
watched that
funny
one and I
because
watched some of your other one that's like an hour.
okay, so the 17-minute one, um, it's so funny because if you're unknown, it is, in my opinion, it is pretty undeniably hilarious. Like it is, every joke hits, with the exception of one new one I did in there, which hit okay, but everything else is hitting like a 9 out of 10. Like there is good, strong laughter. It's well delivered. Blah blah. Because I'm unknown, in the last like 2 weeks since I put it up, it's got less than 300 views. Hilarious. But um, the point, I did that little special because what I did was they were jokes that I had done that went well in front of live audiences. When I put them online, they did very well online. So I did this little special of stuff that I know works both in front of live audiences, in front of also the general population of people who are just randomly scrolling through shit. And so that 17 minutes is just only those kinds of jokes.
Yeah. So, but
And
you're
so,
saying that video, the special itself didn't blow up, but all the clips from it or the
oh, the
clips,
clips from it, yeah, went huge.
yeah. That's crazy. It's crazy. Sometimes the clips blow up more. I mean, especially for podcasts, because nobody has time to listen to an hour podcast, but I could pull
Yeah,
clips, then those will blow up a lot more.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. And sometimes it's, I don't understand the algorithms. Nobody does, from what I understand, because I ask my friends who really are into this stuff, and I'll say like it did really well on TikTok, but it got nothing on
Right.
Instagram and nothing on Facebook. But then
Yeah.
another one, and they're like, yeah, it's impossible.
It doesn't make, I mean, sometimes it's like, if it's just undeniably good, it will do well on all of them. But even still, it's like, it could have
Well,
like way
I haven't had
more on
one.
one of the other one. It's never going to be the same. It's never going to get like 1 million exactly on TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook. It might get, close or whatever, but like, yeah. And it's just it's odd. It's a weird game to play. I hate social media. I would love to get big enough to where I could just hire a social
I
media
know.
guy to do it. That's the dream, I think.
Of course. Of course. What I like about stand up, here's what I see when it comes to social media stuff. You'll have guys who are huge on social media, right? And they're comedians. And then they go to do a live show because they get like, somebody sees them and says, hey, we want you to headline this Comic-Con thing, and we want you to do a 45 minutes of stand up. And they go, yeah, I can do it. And then they get on stage and they get booed off because they're so terrible. It does not translate, right? You could have 3 million followers, you could have 40 million followers on YouTube and whatever else. It does not, or very rarely does it translate to the stage because it's a whole different set of skills. Some people have both those skills.
Yeah.
There's a couple of guys in Australia, who do very well at both.
You're
But
telling me you're
man,
saying the people that are not doing stand up on TikTok, the people that are doing like skits and stuff like
yeah,
that. Yeah, that's
yeah,
different than doing stand up comedy.
yeah,
Because there's people
correct.
that do stand up comedy and then they do stuff on TikTok. They do both, but yeah, it's
Yeah,
definitely different.
it kind of drives me crazy that they say I'm a comedian, and you're like, oh, motherfucker, you ain't never even been on stage. So I would say so. This is why I end up using the word stand up. I say, oh, I'm a stand up, not a comedian. I'm a stand up comedian because it's anyway. I don't know where I was going with any of that. Except
It makes sense though. I
I
totally, I
I was
totally
taught.
get it. I've heard that from a lot of other stand-ups as well, that they say, yeah, there's these kids, they have TikTok and they have millions of followers, but in front of a live audience, it's totally different skill set.
Now, at the same time, you could be the greatest stand-up comedian to ever walk the face of the earth. No one will ever know if you are not able to do the social media shit.
Yeah. Well, and
There's
especially
nobody.
with the production, I feel like that's the biggest thing. I've had some really funny comedians and they didn't have a lot of followers on social media. And then I think some of them eventually did figure it out, but they would have like clips of their stand up and it would be really like shitty audio quality and there's no captions.
Yeah,
You got to have all the captions and the sound
yeah,
effects and the good, audio that's like, recorded on a mic, not like from a camera phone in the back or
yeah,
something.
correct. You,
So,
you have to have the two things I've discovered. You got to have an audio interface that you hook up to your laptop so that one of the feeds is directly from here and it sounds just like you're speaking into a microphone,
yes,
right?
exactly.
And there's and when the audience laughs, you can't even hear them on that mic because the mic is facing that way. Their laughter's coming this
Right.
way and it's going around the mic. So there's another mic at the end of the stage on a black stand. It's a black microphone and it's facing like that. And it's about at like over my head level because all their laughter is coming this way. It's picking everything up.
And you've got to have the right video and angle. It's got to be HD and you've got to be able to see the comedian. It can't be in the back
Yeah.
on a camera phone
Well,
because it's all blurry and shit and it looks
yeah.
like
Look,
crappy.
you gotta have good video. I don't know that it needs to be 4K. It probably helps. I mean, it does. It does because it if you have that with multiple camera angles, it gives the appearance of, oh, this person is a big person.
Right.
That does it. Multiple camera angles are important, I would say. Quality of video is important, but the most important thing is audio. You've got to have crystal clear audio and you got to have the laughter track as well so that you can put those together and they can hear people laughing because there's an old saying which is absolutely true, laughter is contagious.
Absolutely. Do you do all that stuff yourself or do you have a person
Yeah,
that, oh shit,
no, I do
it's
it
a
all
lot of work.
because unless you're making a ton of money, it's not worth it. So look, but I can see the potential for stand-up comedy even as an unknown comedian. So in Australia, you can't make money at comedy. There's just not enough comedy rooms. There's not enough small towns. What I figured out is as an unknown comedian, if you stick to towns that are between 5,000 and 10,000 in the winter, there's nothing else to do. So when I toured the States, well, okay, first of all, in Perth, Australia, which is 2 million people, on the outskirts of that, you can't really live in the desert so much, but there's some small towns that are about that 5 to 10,000. There's about 12 or 14 of them. In Tasmania, where I live, there's about 12 to 14 of them. When you go up to Victoria, which is where Melbourne is, and where Sydney is, there's more of those smaller towns. So an unknown comedian could tour potentially full time. In America, in the state of Iowa alone, within 3 hours of Waverly, Iowa, which is where our family is from and where I was living, 87 towns that size. So if I do every Friday and Saturday, I've got about 10 months of work. So you can, but then what I figured out is to just do the winters, do like, I did a Buffalo, Wyoming, 4,500 people in town on a Tuesday night. And there was 68 people in the audience. And there had been a snowstorm. I was driving between snowstorms, right? It's a Tuesday night at $20 a ticket.
That's pretty
And
good though. I mean, I've been to comedy clubs where there's like 6 people there.
yeah, no, look, comedy clubs I avoided when I did my tour. I would find pubs and American Legions and shit like that, and then
Oh.
just sell my tickets online. And I averaged for the 65 shows that I did in America, I averaged 65 tickets a show.
Yeah, because is part of it like you were saying that some of the comedy clubs won't have you because you're too controversial?
Well, in Australia, yes. In America, it's just because you're unknown.
Wait, in
My,
Australia, it's more. it's like more woke over there or what? Like,
Not the people. The public in Australia is not woke.
that's what I thought.
Man,
Yeah, the Australians I've met
they
have not
are,
been like that.
dude, they're hilarious. They are the funniest bunch of people. They're just wild. They're
Right.
just,
The
and I
women
mean, this
too,
is,
right? The women like drink beer and they're like
oh
swearing
yeah.
and shit and like,
I mean, the women can be quite, especially where I live now in Tasmania. Tasmania is the equivalent of Western North Carolina. It
okay.
looks just like it.
Hmm.
Small mountains, moderate temperature through the year, and just rednecks. I love it. It's my people. I love it. But other places, like if you're in Sydney and Melbourne, people are probably a bit more refined and everything, but not around here, which I prefer. But in the comedy scene in Australia, the people who are the bookers of the various rooms are very hesitant to book anybody that could lose them money.
Hmm.
So this is the problem with Australian comedy is everything you see in the clubs, which is the only scene there is. It's either the clubs or television, and television has to be clean. So it is all, in my opinion, very useless comedy. There's there's nothing controversial about it. It's not edgy. There's a few people out there, but it's I made a discovery early on, just maybe from listening to other people. If you want to do well in comedy for your audiences, obviously you need proper joke structure. You need to be funny, but you also need to be memorable. If they're going to recognize you in the future, you need to be memorable. And part of that is okay, you might have a certain look. Like I always wear the same hat, different hat than this one when I'm on stage. I always have the same kind of look. I've got the same beard all the time. But also, being irreverent makes you memorable. Now, you can be memorable other ways. I wouldn't say Jerry Seinfeld was irreverent, but people like Jim Jeffries and Bill Burr and Carlin and Chappelle, very irreverent. They're saying things that you're not allowed to say about various topics. That is extremely memorable. Australian comedians do not do that.
Hmm.
I, there's a guy named Carl Barron, and he's like one of the biggest comedians in Australia. Hilarious, great joke writer, even does well in Canada. Will not break into the American market because he's not irreverent. That's at least my observation. Jim Jeffries, the only Australian comedian to ever make it big in America, because he's got that American aggressive attitude, that the arrogance, the irreverence. There's another guy who's an Australian comedian over in America, and he's doing well. His name is Monty Franklin, but I don't foresee him being huge because he's just seems like a really wonderful person.
And that's a bad
And
thing.
I think that is for comedy, you have to come off, I think, to be memorable, you have to be irreverent. And to be irreverent, you got to be a little bit of an asshole.
Yeah.
You
No,
know,
I agree now that I think about it, especially for like true fans of comedy. Like I consider myself a pretty true fan of comedy. Like I like the Anthony Jeselniks, the
oh
Bill
God, I
Burrs.
love
Like, I mean,
it.
those guys like push the boundaries for
Yeah,
sure. Shane Gillis, even like, I mean,
yeah,
people don't like him now. He's going to be on SNL and Bud and helping Bud Light, but it's just like, yeah, they got to be at least a little bit of an asshole.
yeah. And I think oh, I've lost the thought. Mm, Carlin. Oh, now I don't know. I think this probably applies less in America, but definitely more in Australia. If you want to be able to really express the kind of irreverent comedy that I want to express and say the things. Here's how I know if I got a good joke, in my opinion. My jokes, when my missus looks at me and she says to me, "What the fuck is wrong with you?" That's that's going to be a good joke, right? I like it when my jokes make people say, "What the fuck did he? What is wrong with him?" Right? In order to
And then
do
you'll
that,
still do see, that's interesting. Yeah. Cause like
yeah,
sometimes I'll
if
run things by my
as long as
girlfriend. not necessarily jokes, but just things like ideas I'm going to do for a podcast or video. And she'll be like, ooh, I don't, or like something a social media post. And she'll be like, ooh, you shouldn't post that. So now you're saying that I should.
Well, as long as two things, as long as it's funny, right? So if I test it in front of an audience, and I'll even like on some of the jokes, I'm like, I can't say this. And my mates who I tour with would be like, you got to say it, you got to do it. I'm like, all right, I'll do it. And if it goes badly a couple of times, I'm like, I can't say it anymore. It's too painful for me because I actually do have a decent moral compass. And I'm like, I can't do it. But if it is totally immoral, what I'm saying is just a horrible thing, but the audience is laughing at every place I go, then I'm like, I'm going to keep saying it. Because, in my opinion, the only metric for knowing if something is funny, the only metric, if you are servicing your audience, is if they're laughing. If they're laughing, then you've done it right. Yeah,
Right.
but
I mean,
you said the worst thing about Mexican people. Okay, I agree. It is the worst possible thing I could say. It's terrible, right? It's delivered in such a way that everybody's laughing their ass off, even the Mexicans. Then you're like, okay, I did it right.
right. Well, yeah, because
But
it's
the
like
truth,
Anthony Jeselnik. I mean, he's talking about like dead babies and stuff, and
Mhm.
nobody wants babies to be dead, or like
Right?
nobody wants to think that that's funny. But it is a joke. It's so silly because it is a joke, and we are not being
Yes,
serious. I
but
don't think if your baby dies, nobody thinks that's funny. But
the trick,
it's like it's yeah, it's tricking your brain, and you're laughing at the scenario. Like not
yeah,
if it really happens, then yeah, it's not funny. But that's what
yeah.
stand up is. It's all these like fanatical things that are just like, hilarious scenarios.
Also, you are a car salesman as a stand-up, right? And so somebody comes in to buy a truck from me and I'm trying to sell them an electric car. There's like, that's not what I'm here for. So when you're in front of that live audience, you're building this rapport with them. And if they believe that you are a, a racist person and you say something that is clearly the opposite of racist, people will boo because they're like, yeah, it's racist. And you're like, no, what I just said was the opposite of that because it's what they believe about you. So once I convince the audience, they know, oh, he's just a clown. It's satirical. He's just being a dickhead and saying these things because he knows he can't say them. Then you can say the most misogynistic or racist thing that a person could ever say, and everybody gets that you're like saying it because it's exactly what you wouldn't say, and that's what makes it funny because you're just being a clown, but they know you don't believe it. So if they know for certain that you're not that bigoted person, then you can say those things and they will laugh and they will find it funny. So it's about a lot of it has to do with what they believe about you. So when you take that out of context for a 30-second clip, now you're going to run into a problem. Like with Tony Hitchcliffe got into a whole bunch of trouble for whatever he said about some Asian person, a couple of years ago, and they're going to cancel him. But everybody else who saw him live understood the context it was in. But that 30-second clip, I don't know if this is exactly correct, but those situations, the comedian looks like a total asshole, and to the general public without context, of course, he's a total asshole.
Well, yeah. So yeah, tell my audience about this thing where you had to get a lawyer to kind of help you like defend yourself so you
So
didn't get canceled.
a lot of it has to do with the fact that I didn't start comedy until I was 40 years old. So a little background on that. I never wanted to be a comedian. I thought it was a bunch, like, I always thought that performers, like, my father would say this as a joke, and I always thought it was hilarious. We'd walk by somebody busking, and he'd kind of lean over to me and go, get a real job. Like, anybody who is in the arts is a faggot. Like, what kind of get a real goddamn job, get on the mines, work construction, be a goddamn man. So I never wanted to do it. It fell in my lap. I started doing it. Um, and I approached comedy very differently. This is something I was starting to say, and then we'll get to your question. In Australia, or with my kind of comedy, if I want to do my kind of comedy, uh, I have to be financially not dependent on the comedy. I have to already have investments and a stable job and all these other kind of things so that I can just run my own shows. I can run my own open mics. I don't need the scene to promote me and give me the rah rah. You're doing a good job. I'm doing comedy for me because it's what I've chosen to do, and I'm financially stable enough outside of it that I can do whatever I want. As a new comedian, if you're not in that situation, then you're at the club and they're like, you know that joke that you do about Baba Black Sheep? We don't want you to do it anymore. And you're like, yeah, but it's an expression of me. And they're like, well, do you want to get paid and do you want to get jobs here? And you're like, yes, sir. And they go, then cut the joke. And you're like, okay. And so then you start doing material that is of that level rather than that full expression of yourself. So, in my opinion, the more financially stable that a comedian is a little later in life, they can do the comedy they want to do. So this got me, that's probably a lot of what got me in trouble in the amateur comedy scene. Because I see, and this is typical of every stand up scene, there's a lot of bullying going on. There's people who were bullied in high school and they're not very funny, but they somehow become the booker for a room. They're running a room. And now they start bullying people, even though they're drop kicks and they don't have the comedy to back it up, but they're just belittling all the new comedians. And I would see this and I would go, that's a bunch of bullshit. On top of that, I'm doing comedy that audiences love. And the bookers are saying to me, you can't do that kind of comedy here. And I went, well, the audience loves it. So how about you can kiss my ass? Right? So, but I was staying in the scene. And then in Perth, I'm getting to the point, there was only 3 comedy clubs in a city of 2 million people, 3 amateur open mics. I was like, that's not enough. Like, that's well under service. So what happened when I was only about a year and a half in is me and another guy opened 4 rooms a week. So now we're doing whatever we want to. We're doing the comedy we want to. We're running our own shows. And it was promoting a more American style of comedy. And at the same time, I told these other comedians who were bullying everybody that they were not good people. And I said, and I don't need you. So they started spreading rumors, anything they could, to get people against me so people wouldn't perform at my rooms. Because there was this guy Colin actually wrote this long thing on Facebook about if somebody tries to open rooms, you got to shut them down so we can keep the scene the way it is. I'm like, what is this ridiculousness? Anyway, long story short, they're trying to spread every kind of rumor. And this is always the best way that I've heard amateur comedy scenes described: high school 2.0. And that is so accurate. So they try to start all these little rumors, and I wouldn't buy it. I was like, I don't give a shit. I'm doing my own thing. I don't care about that. I'm just growing, growing, growing. Anyway, a particular rumor started based on nothing that implied I was a felon. And I was like, nah, I don't think that's good. And my missus said, that's real bad for our actual business as well. And I was like, yeah. So then I was like, all right, I consulted a lawyer. Lawyer said, yeah, for your business as a chiropractor, you can't have these kind of rumors that you're a felon running around. And I was like, all right. So then I just got a lawyer to draft an expensive letter that said to a guy who had wrote some stuff online, you can't be saying that shit. And that's really the summary of the story. And after that, here's what's great. Comedians have no money. So after that, they all shut their fucking mouths, didn't they? They were scared shitless because I threw $4,000 at something that they don't have 2 pennies to rub together.
I fucking love it, man. I love it. Yeah, I like it when people stand up to that kind of shit because there's a lot of people that think they're bullies, and especially you see this online. I feel like you say it's high school amateur hour is the or comedy amateur comedy is the high school, but I feel like it's social media, and sometimes people, they get very cocky and they think they can bully you online, and what are you going to do about it, and so
what I love?
Sometimes you have to get a lawyer, which sucks.
Yeah.
But, I mean, it's very effective.
But like as the lawyer said to me, look, are you going to be a professional comedian? And I was like, hesitantly, I was like, look, I don't know, because I was only like, 4 years in.
Sure.
And she goes, if you're not going to be, don't waste $4,000. If you think that you might be a professional comedian someday, and then also your chiropractic business, you have to consider
Right.
that. She goes, then it's going to be the best $4,000 you've ever spent. And she was right, because now all of those fake rumors, nobody brings them up. Nobody mentions my name in that scene anymore, because they know not to. And it's
And
like a dog.
this was the truth. You were not a felon. So I mean,
Oh,
that's illegal. Isn't that slander? Is there some law against that?
liable. Yeah.
Okay.
What do they call? They call it, you're liable. They call it, yeah, but basically slander type of stuff. So yeah, and the trick was they were saying it verbally, but nobody put it online. Once somebody wrote it and 30 people could see it, now you've got them.
Right. Well, and that's the funny thing is like the people that bully online, I'm like, I love it because I'm like, okay, great. You've created a trail, a paper trail or electronic trail, whatever you want to
Yeah,
call it, of
yeah,
everything you've done. It's online. It's all right there. And even if you delete stuff, I mean, a forensic computer analyst or whatever, they can go back and get that shit. So like you got to be
yeah.
careful about what you say online. And I mean, that's why I'm trying to be careful with the podcast. I don't try to go after anybody. I mean, I think people should have free speech, but there's limits of free speech. You can't
Of
yell
course.
fire in a crowded room. So,
Yeah, yeah. That's it. Yeah, there's all
I mean,
sorts of
I
stuff
can
like
have an
that.
opinion. I can say,
I got a
I,
joke. I got a joke that doesn't work very well yet, but I think it
okay,
will work well once I get it out a few more times and I get a better ending to it. And it was just about freedom of speech. Like freedom of speech doesn't even exist in America anymore. Like you can't just, I mean, you could walk up to a big black guy and call him the N word, but there's definitely no freedom from the consequences.
right. Well,
So,
exactly.
so there's going to be another ending to that. It's not often that I like to try to say something, but there's a couple of jokes that I have where it says something and I really like saying it, because once you have a good punchline at the end, then the whole thing becomes undeniable. When you've made a very good logical point, because I'd like to make more points about the fact that, you know, people go, we have to have the Second Amendment because the Constitution is this pure and beautiful and sacred thing. Yeah, it's already been raped, right? The Second Amendment has been modified, and the Fourth Amendment and the Seventh Amendment. So people with freedom in America, they take it very seriously. And I'd like to make some really good points about where they're wrong that are unique. But the problem is, if it's not funny, you're just doing a TED talk, and that does not belong on a comedy stage.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that's a problem with some of the. I think that's why comedy changed and shifted because I feel like so Jon Stewart came out and I felt like he was very fresh and he was very like, oh wow, this guy's like telling it like it is with the Bush and all this stuff. And then every other comedian copied him, and then I was like, well, this isn't funny. Like you're just copying. You're like literally just parodying Jon Stewart. And now it's like there was this shift to like okay, now there's these like anti woke comedians or whatever you want to call it. It's like it's a different shift. And I was like, okay, now this is refreshing because they're doing something different. So
Yeah.
right, otherwise it's just like it comes across as preachy.
Yeah, if it gets too preachy, like, and sometimes it's hard, because when you're first starting with a joke, it comes off as, if it's really making a good point, it comes off as preachy until you've done it about like 15 times on stage, and then it keeps getting better and better. Like my favorite joke that I have that says something so important, um, it's about my daughter, and I'm talking about what I taught my daughter about. There's three things that you need to know in life. Okay, there's only three things. If you know these three things, you'll get through life. You'll have a happy life, specifically in high school. Number one, treat other people the way you want to be treated. Number two, perseverance is just about the only key to success in everything you're going to try to accomplish. And number three, um, just live your own life. Don't let other people tell you what path you're supposed to take. Okay, there's a problem with that. None of it's fucking funny,
Right.
right? And it doesn't really belong in a stand-up show. And who is this guy to tell us this stuff? What does he know? So now I had to start with that and try to have some jokes that I wrote for it. But even still, I'll have to say to the audience, like I do a little joke, then I say, look, this part gets a little serious, right? So it's called the 3 bitch rule. Treat other people the way you want to be treated. Don't be a bitch. Number 2, perseverance gets all the jobs done, but all these young kids are always like, go cry to their mommy when stuff gets hard. I said to my daughter, no, when times get tough, you be tough. Don't be a little bitch. And number 3, everybody thinks they know your duty better than you know it, right? Going to try to tell you how to live your life. No, you make your own path. Don't be somebody else's bitch. And then from the other room, my wife goes, that's great. Now get in here and do the dishes, bitch. And my daughter, 14 years old, goes, Dad, I want you to know I was paying attention to everything you said, and I ain't nobody's bitch. So I'm pretty sure mama's talking to you.
Exactly. I love that joke. I saw that on your Instagram. That's
So I
great.
went,
I
so
saw
I
that
went and
one.
did
That's
the dishes.
classic. Yeah.
But it has to be like that. And then there has to be also a little lead in with another joke that's really strong before it. Then after I do this joke that's a strong lead in, and then I say to the audience, okay, this part's a little serious. They'll give you kind of 30 seconds to be serious, but it's like you better get those 3 rules out right away, and then you better have super strong punchlines to follow it. So,
Yeah.
interestingly, that joke does really well in front of audiences. On TikTok, it got 1.8 million views. On Facebook and Instagram, it had a total of 20,000 views. Beats the
That's
shit out of
awesome.
me.
Yeah, that's fucking great. Like the jokes that I've seen that you do, I mean, I've seen your special and I've seen the clips, and yeah, it's all great stuff. So I was like, wow, this guy. I mean, it's almost like you kind of came out of nowhere because, like you said, you just started posting stuff 7 months ago. So I feel like you
Yeah.
could now blow up.
I feel like yes, because I remember Bill Burr said this to some female comedian who was complaining about, you've seen the clip, I'm sure. She's complaining about why female comedians don't have the same opportunities as male comedians or something. And he goes, why don't you stop complaining, open your own rooms, don't let us perform, and just become undeniable. And that was the word. Become undeniable. Once your shit is so good, and so once your stuff, certain jokes and your persona on stage, once it's so strong that you're undeniable, right? That character, that those characteristics that you've built in building that material goes with you everywhere. So now my stuff, it's not perfect. I'm not going to say I'm the same level as a guy who's been doing it for 25 years like Bill Burr. But for most people, when they see me do 90-minute shows, they, unless they were an absolute comedy connoisseur, they struggle to tell the difference between that great American product and the Chinese imitation. And at this point, I might just be a Chinese imitation, but my stuff is good enough that you're like, oh, I can't tell the difference. Right? So,
Well, I would say
because
I wouldn't say your imitation. I think you have definitely some very original, obviously original material and original. I mean, who would you or who are you imitating? I mean, I see some of your
well,
influences,
no,
but I
I
don't
was
think
just
you're
using it as a bad example.
okay. All right. Yeah, because I was like,
But,
no, dude, I think you're more than the imitation. I've seen
well, thank you.
comedians like that. Like, here's a poor man's Bill Burr or a poor man's Dave
Yeah.
Chappelle. I've seen tons of those. But no, I think
Somebody
your stuff is
posted that I was a wish list Larry the Cable Guy, and I responded, "That fat fuck wishes he was as funny as I am."
yeah, I mean, well, I like Larry the Cable Guy, but like, no, you're funnier
I
than Larry
don't
the Cable
believe
Guy.
that.
Larry the
What's
Cable
that?
Guy is more for like people that don't really watch a lot of comedy. Like they might go to a show like once a year. That's Larry the Cable. You're more
Well,
like for
even
people who
still,
watch a
he's
lot of comedy.
hilarious. He's hilarious. I just love responding to the comments in the most vicious, ridiculous way possible.
Do you respond to all the comments? You don't ignore them? I
I
thought that
try
was
to
what you're supposed to
respond.
do.
Everybody says don't look at the comments,
Yeah.
never respond to the comments. So I'm different because, as I was saying, I was working on, now whether I'm totally undeniable yet is a different story. But I was working on becoming undeniable before I posted anything online. So I've got a joke that is simply these words that you can't say anymore. You can't call them retarded anymore. You know, you've probably seen this one. You can't use the
I think
word
that was the one that
retarded.
made me reach out to you.
Probably. Now you have to use the proper term, which is feminist. Now, I also have modified that joke. I like to say afterwards, let's be serious though, the real drop kicks are male feminists. And then I go on to talk
I haven't heard
because,
that part of it.
yeah, because feminism, I think there's something to it. Male feminists, what a bunch of faggots. You only become a male feminist for one reason, okay? And it's to get pussy. Because normally, as a guy, you can get pussy if you
Uh,
can dance, if you are making money, if you're funny, or if you're fit. If you can do any of those four things, you're going to find a chick, right? But if you're an overweight guy with purple hair and you can't get a piece of ass, you start telling women, I love soy lattes and talking about my emotions, right? This is why
that
there's
doesn't
never,
work.
what's that?
Those guys don't
It
get
does.
laid, do they?
They get some piece of interesting ass, but this is why. See, because it's only you only do that to get pussy, which I find is the absolute proof. Because there's never in the history of mankind been a feminist male that's a gay guy.
Really? Wait.
There might be, but they're very few. Why would you be as a gay man? Why would you be why would you
Well,
be a feminist?
because aren't they kind of all friends? Like with the like every a lot of girls groups now have like a gay guy as a member, kind of like of the
They're
group.
not
It's like
feminists.
they're
They're not
not.
feminists. No, they're just chicks.
Well, do they not like okay. I'm not sure how it all works. It is
I don't know.
weird. I
I
think
think
it's
the
weird
only
when other
reason,
people, whether it's a male feminist, I think it's even weirder is when like white people uh talk about how racist things are. I'm like, well, you don't know what it's like to be black. You're white. Why are you telling me that things are racist? What you don't know what that's but they're like speaking for black people.
yeah,
I find that
yeah.
even weirder.
You know what? I saw a video which was really interesting because these white male beta males were like speaking on behalf of black people, and the black woman was like, "I am a strong black woman. I can speak for myself.
Yes.
I don't
Yes.
need you
That's
telling
the message
people,
we should be sending to people.
yeah, like I'm a strong black woman. I don't need your help, homo."
There you go. I mean, that's what it seems like to me. I know a lot of black people who are like really smart and amazing people, and they don't need like white people's
No,
pity. They don't need white people to take care of them. They're doing
no.
just fine. They're doing
Yeah.
better. A lot of them are doing a lot better than I am.
And
So
this isn't always true, but what I've heard a couple of times from black guys is like, man, just stay out of the way. Especially they go to me, they go, you run your mouth so much, the best thing you can do is just stay out of the way. I was like, that's a fair call.
yeah, I mean,
Now,
it's
well,
not really our business. I mean,
I know.
I think it's just, it's almost to me, it's like another form of racism. You know what I mean?
Look,
You're treating them different. It's like, did you ever see
yeah,
that press conference with the Buccaneers coach? And they asked him about, oh, like, did you talk to the Pittsburgh Steelers coach, Mike Tomlin? Because he's black too, like you. He's like, you're making it sound like we're like oddballs or something. He's like, I'm friends with every coach. He's like, and he's like, well, then they're like, well, how are we going to get through the racism? And he's like, maybe you guys could stop pointing it out and talking about it. And that's how we'll get through it. If you just stop,
uh,
And so, yeah,
there's
it's
something
very
to it.
bizarre and awkward to hear those conversations.
I mean, I don't know. It's just one of those conversations I just try to stay out of. It's not my business. But I do think for all of the we don't see color, we clearly do
No,
because
we
people keep
definitely
bringing it
do,
up.
but there's a
Yeah,
difference between seeing color and how you value that. I think that's the
yeah.
problem, at least for me, in my opinion,
So
as a white male,
I
privileged male, is that you people are valuing color over skill and
well
and
I have a
truth and
joke that doesn't
honesty. Sorry, go
I
on.
have a joke that doesn't work very well. So I've kind of dropped it, but it's almost important, and that is, I really don't believe in anything except my only form of morality is this: did you get the job done? I don't care if you are a black midget transgender amputee. I don't give a shit. If I hire you to come in and put in electrical switches in my house, did you get the job done? That's all I care about. I mean, the only problem with that is because it was a black midget transgender amputee that I hired. All my light switches are at about knee level. it never, it never works.
I think I
And
saw that one. Is that online somewhere? I feel like heard of it.
it was, but it never does really that well in front of audiences, live audiences, or online. The other thing was, like I forget that you're a black midget transgender amputee, except that that's my favorite category of porn.
That's the one I saw. I think that's hilarious.
And then that leads me into this other joke about filming my parents having sex.
But is that the one? Did you, then wasn't there also a trans joke, the Frankenstein one? Is that the one?
Oh my god! I had to take that one down.
You had to hire a lawyer to give you the answers when you got drilled about it on how do you respond because
oh god, yeah. I didn't have to hire a lawyer. I had to do an interview, a radio interview about whether or not I thought the word tranny was funny. And my whole defense in this, they didn't end up using the radio interview because I gave the guy nothing. Because I would say, he goes, do you think, like, why do you think the word tranny is funny? And I said, first of all, I told him I had a lawyer, but I didn't.
okay.
First of all, the way you're asking that question presupposes my guilt. You're saying that I do think it's funny. Okay. I don't think it's funny. And he goes, well, it's in your joke. And I go, yeah. And he goes, well, then why do you have that? I go, because the audience thinks it's funny. That's it. That's the only metric. He's like, well, just because they think it's funny doesn't mean it's funny. And I go, okay, so if I say something, I do a joke and nobody laughs, is it funny? And he was like, oh, well. And I was like, the only metric is whether or not they're laughing. What people get confused about is they try to think that the comedian is supposed to be this moral guidance counselor for everybody. No, we are saying shit that's funny. Okay.
Because you can't say it. We're not allowed to say it, but you could say it as a comedian.
Yeah.
And then it makes it funny. Like, and they've made things that didn't used to be funny, like the word retard. Like people said that all the time and it was like no big deal. And then it was like, you can't say that. And now it's like, I feel like it's making a comeback. It's all over. You have it in a joke. It's in Twitter. And I guess it's making a comeback and now it's funny again. I don't know. Or maybe it's still bad and we're going to get canceled.
Yeah, look, I mean, if you're saying it like in a really terrible way to somebody, it's different than
if you're saying it to someone who's mentally challenged. That is horrible. You're a terrible person. If you call your friend Steve that because he dropped a beer and spilled glass all over your garage, that's funny.
But some people would say their defense of not using the word is because it promotes the idea and makes it okay. And a moral person should know better than to do that. And I agree. But I'm not a moral person. I'm a comedian. That's all it's about.
See, I don't even agree with the moral person. Now, I think if you
that was my defense on the radio show.
Yeah. But I'm saying, like, if you made fun of a mentally handicapped person or physically handicapped, or made fun of anybody for something that they can't help, that's being. I don't even think that's funny. I would cringe if I saw that. Yeah. If I saw you calling a gay guy like a fag or something, like I would cringe. I would not think that's funny. Now, if you called your friend Steve that because he was drinking a Mike's Hard Lemonade, that's fucking funny.
Yeah.
Call me a terrible person. I don't know.
But even still, like, again, it's in the way. So a gay guy, right? And Louis C.K. talks about this, and it's been there was some movie with Willem Dafoe, right? Where like after he's a gay guy in the movie and after they have sex, the guy wants to cuddle with him and he says, "Get away from me, faggot." And you're like, that's kind of funny, right? Because it's totally out of place.
Right.
And he's not just being derogatory. So whatever. But so back to that radio interview. I don't know if there was much more to say about it. I just kept saying that's what they were like, so moving forward, are you going to use that word? And I go, well, I'll have to think about it and consider it, but it just depends on whether or not the audience is laughing. That was my entire point in that thing. And because comedy is an art, you can hide behind And I will say hide behind the fact that it's an art, because then you can say horrible things and you can hide behind it because it's artistic. You know, are these pictures, are these paintings of naked children art? And people will say it's in the museum and it's art, and so it's not pedophilic, whatever, pornography. It's just art. And I kind of think, well, that's a bunch of bullshit. But at the same time,
Right.
it does, as a comedian, you can hide behind it being art. But it's only, oh shit, it's only really defensible if that audience is laughing their titties off. If they're not laughing, then it's not art. You know, it's
But
not
what if only
well
okay, what
performed
if it's
art.
a joke and all the, well, no, because see, that's the thing is
I,
like, I think our society has changed enough that like, like if, like it may, I mean, maybe there'll be like one person not joke laughing or whatever, but like if it hurts gay people, then even like a lot of people who stick up for gay people, they wouldn't think it's funny either, right?
correct, correct.
So you
Yeah.
really do have to be careful. I mean, it would have to be really offensive to really
Well,
hurt a lot of
I
people.
don't,
You'd have to like
I,
to piss off half the audience or more.
I don't think it's about being careful. I think, oh shit, there we go. It fell. Hold on.
Oh
I
boy,
think
here we
when it
go.
comes to it being um, good stand-up comedy, it's merely that it needs to be well written and well performed.
Yeah.
I have a joke, right, where I say, essentially, in order to fix gun crime, we need to get rid of all black people. That's what the joke says. Okay, but it's delivered and crafted in such a way that it's funny, because what I say is this next joke is my best joke. Not the joke you're going to laugh at the most, but it's got a hidden punchline that you're not going to see. I said it's like I pointed some guy in the front row. I say it's like if you were a gay blind fella. You're not going to see it coming, right? And then I go through this thing about we've got 22,000 gun murders a year. 80% of them are black on black. We got 350 million people in America and 400 million registered guns, just registered guns. And I think we're never going to be able to fix the gun violence problem in America because, frankly, it is unconstitutional. And everybody's like, yeah, unconstitutional, especially when you're in the red counties, right? And immoral. And I say, and I cannot stress that enough for this joke. It is both unconstitutional and immoral to get rid of black people. And then, like, a lot of times everybody's like, oh my God, like, what did you just say? Like, you can't say that. And I follow that up with, don't bullshit me. You did not see that coming. And then they go, oh, that's the point of the joke is you don't see it. He knows he said something horrible. Okay. He knows it was immoral. He knows it's wrong. Statistically pretty correct. I think the actual statistic is 61%. But then they go, oh, right, he called us out for the fact that we did not see it coming. So what makes the joke funny is not the content, it's that you didn't see it coming and I pulled a magic trick on you. It was sleight of hand with words. And then I go on to say, I'm not an idiot. I don't just do these jokes in front of like groups of white people. Okay. If I'm going to do a joke like that, I have tested it. I tested that joke in front of the most left leaning city in America, Seattle, Washington,
My
in front
hometown.
of an all black. Are you in? Is that where you're from? Is Seattle?
I'm in Phoenix now, but I grew first 30 years of my life I lived in Seattle. Yeah. Which club
Okay.
were you at?
Uh, in Seattle, I don't even. I did a couple of different places. The only one I can remember is Flight Path.
Oh, okay. I don't even know. I'm not even familiar
But
with
then
it. Okay.
there was one that I got asked to do. Did I hit the volume? I think I did. Oh shit! Are you still there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, I can't see you. There we
But anyways,
go.
you're in Seattle and you oh, now I lost you. I can't see you. I don't know if I can hear you.
No.
Oh, you're back. Okay. So you're in
Okay, wait a minute.
Seattle and you're doing this joke in front of a very left-leaning audience
Oh
and they
yeah,
were
but
okay with
then
it.
so I did it in front of left-leaning audience, but I also did it at this other one that I got asked to do in front of an all-black audience. I did that joke,
Wow.
and guess what? Guess what? They laughed their titties off. Okay, so and then So right
Yeah, I
away,
love that. And isn't that the big FU to all these
yeah,
like white professors that are saying like you can't do this and you can't say,
but
and then like the real black people are like, I think that's pretty damn funny.
yeah, and I was like, I did that joke at the flight path at the open mic, and I had a couple black guys afterwards come up to me that I had been talking to a little bit before, and I was like, man, I can never do that joke again, can I? And they were like, you got to do that joke everywhere you go, and I was like, oh no. They were
See,
like,
that's
it's
what's so
funny.
funny. So because it's when you look at your comedy, you're like, oh, this guy's like a real conservative, like redneck, like racist person. But then when I talk to you, I'm like, you actually seem a little bit more liberal, actually. And like
I,
it's an act, it's
I,
comedy. These are
I
jokes. You're not
yeah,
really.
I think that I am extremely logical, and so therefore, I believe that puts me very central because, and I've got jokes about this that even like, oh no, okay, this is a joke I don't really do, but like I think that 90% of us are in the middle, and you have 5% at either end, which I think those people are important for society. So the rest of us know what the limitations are for retardedness. And I think if
Yes,
you're
I love this
extremely,
joke. This is great.
I did this
Oh,
in front of all like red audiences in America. Even if you're extremely right leaning and you're against abortion, okay, and heaven forbid that your niece got like gang raped or something horrible like that, you might say to yourself, okay, I'm against abortion, but I'm logical. And so maybe the abortion is better than her having a black child.
oh God. Hey, they can't argue with that, right?
What's that?
They couldn't argue with that, right? If they're, I mean, if they're,
Oh my God, it's so terrible. And then another one that I've got, which and I have put this online, and I love because this was the point about being logical and being central. You can stir up your audiences on both sides. So,
yeah,
regardless of if I'm doing this in front of a left leaning audience or a right leaning audience, there's all this emotion involved. Because I'm talking about in America, you can only get abortions in certain states. This is what's crazy, the differences between Australia and America. Okay? In Australia, you can get an abortion anywhere. Okay? In America, you can get a vasectomy anywhere, but in Australia, if you are a man less than 40 years old, and you have less than 3 children, they will not give you a vasectomy. That's how they're trying to increase population, right? So, but what? In both countries, right? It's completely ethical and normal for a 10-year-old boy to transition into being a 10-year-old girl. And I think it's disgusting, right? So now, when I've said all that, the people on the right leaning, they're like, yeah, he's right. It's disgusting. And the people on the left are like, fuck this guy. Like, he's a terrible. So there's all this emotion involved. And I go, I think it's sick because it's confusing. And right away you say that, and people are like, what? What? It's sick because it's confusing for Catholic priests.
yeah,
So now neither side saw it coming. They're already emotional about it. It's a total release when everybody pretty much agrees that Catholic priests are pedophiles and fuck them anyways.
yeah,
Right? So this is why I think like I try to have like I'll play that I'm right leaning or left leaning for a certain joke, but generally speaking, my punchlines are not um, um, directed right or left. They're just I try to just have something that's funny down the middle.
right. No, but I mean, yeah, that makes sense. Like, I guess my point is that like that people want to label you, so they're gonna see like some of your jokes and go, okay, this guy's like a right wing, far right wing, far. You got to say far right
Yeah,
wing Trumper, racist, terrible person. But these are jokes, and if I talk to you, you don't hate any group of people. You don't hate any people. Like you're gonna poke fun at every group of people, and like you said, you're gonna poke fun at the left. You're gonna poke fun at the right and make
yep.
people uncomfortable. And that's the kind of humor I love. Because if you watch a lot of comedy like I do, the Larry the Cable guys, they're fine, they're great, but like he's so mainstream. I want the people that are a little more edgy that are going to make me uncomfortable. I want something a little
I,
more out there. I like that's why I like
I
his
do
comedy.
I do like I agree. Again, I think it has to be a bit irreverent because if your comedy is not irreverent, if you're not trying to say something that's uncomfortable, eh, like, is it? What's the point of it? Like,
Yeah.
what purpose does it serve as an art?
Yeah.
It doesn't really serve any. Oh, we had a giggle. Who fucking cares?
Well, the perfect example of how you're not left or right is this is a good joke is when you say, we're talking about the retard that you can't say you can't say special needs. You have to call him Mr. President. And then you say, I don't know if that's a Trump joke or a Biden joke. And then, and then it's like, oh, okay, now you fucked with both of so that's great. I love it.
And my favorite part of that joke is I wrote it in 2004 about Obama.
I didn't even know that. Okay, wow.
And it's been applicable ever since in both Australia and America.
Oh yeah, is Australia? I don't follow Australian politics, but I know that they were pretty bad during the lockdown. I have some buddies from there, and they weren't too. Thankfully, they moved out of there. But
politicians are politicians.
There you go. That's what it is.
That's all it is.
I'm not a fan of politicians. I'm a fan of comedians. I think it's funny. I had a comedian on the other day, and we were talking about how, I watched the news. He's like, I go, the news is like comedy now. And he's like, yeah, he goes, isn't it funny? I watch the news to laugh, and then I listen to comedians to find out about what's going on in the world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's about accurate. I've heard something like that recently as well. I'm trying to think if there was another thing that you had asked me. Well, do you have a different line of questioning?
No, I mean, this is great. Maybe we should wrap up here. You've had this is great stuff. Great material. I've either lost my audience or maybe I've turned some fans into your comedy. If people like this conversation, it got a little weird, got a little fun. I enjoyed it. I like your comedy. I think people should check you out. I hope that you come to the States and come to Arizona. I will bring all my friends that I know would love you.
Well, beautiful. Yeah, I'll be February, March, April of 2025. I will be coming through the States and doing a big loop and do about 30 shows.
And will you be anywhere near Arizona? If you're not in Arizona?
Yeah, I'm going to have to be in Phoenix. I'm going to have to be.
Okay, yeah. Because otherwise I could always drive to, if it's, if I'm busy that week, I'll drive to Vegas or LA. I've done that before. But yeah, if you come to Phoenix, that makes it even easier.
I'll come through Phoenix and Tucson because I have family members in each of those places that I need to stay with for a week.
Oh, perfect. Okay, cool. Yeah. Well, I look forward to seeing you live. And otherwise I'll just follow you on social media, which is everyone else should do. You want me to put, do you have a website, or should I just put your Instagram or YouTube? How should people find you?
My Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook are all exactly the same. Jimmy Kuratz, Kurat, like a rat, Z, comedian. Jimmy Kuratz, comedian on all three of them.
Okay, awesome. Thanks, Jimmy. I look forward to seeing more stuff from you.
Absolutely a pleasure.
All right, bye-bye.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for taking the time to listen to the full podcast episode. Please help support our guests by following them on social media and purchasing their products, whether it be a book, album, film, or other thing. And if you have a few extra dollars, please consider donating it to their favorite charity. If you want to support the show, you can like, share, and comment on this episode on social media and YouTube. And if you want to go the extra mile, you can give us a rating or review on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or Google Podcasts. Finally, make sure you're subscribed to the show on YouTube for the video versions and other exclusive content. We appreciate your support. Have a great rest of your day and shoot for the moon.